around page 84, 85. What happened to or in Glome after Psyche's sacrifice?
Everything goes back to normal. Like sucks. Everything's good starting to happen.
Rain comes.
Country that was going to go to war with them has an internal thing that's going to keep them busy for like a year.
Animals return.
Yeah, I mean, the plague stops. Everything gets fertile again. So what do the people of Glome think?
Go us.
The sacrifice
Okay,
worked.
go us. The sacrifice worked. The sacrifice was taken by the god/gods. Okay, so Arule's talking to the fox about all this. She's trying to make sense of it all, and she asks him, bottom of 84, do you still think that Ungit is only lies of poets and priests? He says, why not? Well, if she were indeed a goddess, what more could have followed my poor sister's death than has followed it? I mean, if she really was a goddess, look what happened after my sister died. Plants came back, started producing again, animals started giving birth again, the foreign wars stopped, etc. The wind must have changed the very day after they had, and she can't finish her sentence. And the fox says, chance. Cursed chance. It's just pure chance. She said, but you tell me there is no such thing as chance. Okay, so how can it be chance when there is no such thing as... He goes, you're right. Old trick of the tongue. In other words, I can't stop myself from saying what? What does he actually say when he says things like that? He says what he really believes in here, not what he thinks is true up here. Okay? He says, I meant all these things had no more to do with that murder, notice, not sacrifice, in his mind, murder, than with anything else. They and it are all part of the same web, which is called nature or the whole. In other words, the fox is saying, what would have happened had Psyche never been sacrificed?
The same.
The wind still would have changed the very next day. Can that be proven? Nope. Because she was sacrificed. You can't go back in time and undo it. Okay? So Arul says, so she died for no purpose. Her death was entirely in vain. And you think this is comforting to me? She asks him. No, he says. No. Their evil doing was vain and ignorant, as all evil deeds are. This is our comfort, that the evil was theirs, not hers. Okay. So they intended evil. What did she intend? Psyche intended her sacrifice, as she said to Arul the night before, or 2 nights before, whichever it was. She was going to go marry the god of the Great Mountain. She would be the ransom for her people. That was her intention. If the fox is right, does it matter what her intention was? No. Why not? If the fox is right. Because there is no god of the Great Mountain. So her intention, she was essentially what in her thinking that night before? Delusional? Misguided? Mad? As in crazy, not angry. Yeah, because if the fox is right, there are no gods to sacrifice to. And Arul is right. Her death was a waste. Completely in vain. Served no purpose whatsoever. Okay? So, he says, but she died full of good things. She died with right thought. Big freaking deal, right? It doesn't matter if he's right. What her ideas were, what her thoughts were as she was being chained to the tree. All right? So the next day, they talk some more, and he tells Arul, page 86, yesterday you saw a little progress I have made. What does he mean, progress? Growth in wisdom. Okay? Growth in virtue, not knowledge. Okay? I began to philosophize too late. What's he mean? You saw the disconnect. You saw the breakdown between this and this in me. For the fox, this is what should reign. The mind should control everything because it's what's up here that's important. So he says, you're younger, you can go further than me. I've started teaching you while you're still young. You will be much wiser than I am when you get to my age. To love and to lose what we love are equally things appointed for our nature. True or false? Okay, that is a statement of the human condition. To love and to lose what we love is, how does he put it? Equally things appointed for our nature. That is true. You don't need proof. Why? Because people go through that every day. Whenever a person dies, somebody loved that person. They might not have loved them at that very moment. You know, say some homeless guy under a bridge dies. Well, at some point in that person's life, somebody loved that person. Maybe not anymore. Okay? The incident in Florida on Valentine's Day. Awful lot of people loved an awful lot of people. Okay? And they're no longer with us. If we cannot bear the second well, that is, if we cannot bear losing what we love, well, that evil is ours. What does he mean by that evil? It is an evil to us to do what? To lose those we love. Okay? What's his point? What do people often say about life when, quote unquote, bad things happen? It's not fair. Okay? I used to tell my kids when they were still pretty young, you're right. It's not fair. Life's not fair. Get over it. That's what he's trying to get Arul to understand her. Because Arul is thinking, this isn't fair. Or let's use a different word. It's not right. You're right. It's not right. It sucks, in fact. It's horrible that 3-year-olds get cancer and die. And other people live to be 85, 90, 100, etc., who are thoroughly rotten individuals. Okay? Mobsters, for example. Fidel Castro. Okay? A rotten person by any standard. And yet he lived into his 80s, personally responsible for the death of thousands. And yet there are 3-year-olds who get cancer, or 17-year-olds or 15-year-olds who get shot multiple times. Okay? Yeah, it's not fair. But what's his point? Is it that it's not fair? No. He goes one step more. It's how we deal with the not fairness of it all. Because what could you do? What could be one response to that? You could curl up into that fetal position and say, I'm never getting out of bed again. Why? Life's too hard. Or you could say, life's too hard and I am a victim of everything. How productive would that be? Not at all. Or what else could you do? You could say, you're right, life sucks. And then do what? Get up, keep, louder, Ashton.
Kick its ass.
Kick its ass anyways. Get up and say, all right, life, give me your best shot. Because I'm going to get up and keep going. Okay? I'm going to get up and keep marching forward for whatever the purposes are that one has to march forward. He says, it did not befall Psyche. What's the it? The second evil. If we look at it with reason's eye, reason up here, and not with our passions, the heart, what good that life offers did she not win? What does he mean? He's talking about the virtues. Okay? What did she achieve in her life? Chastity, temperance, prudence, meekness, clemency, valor. She had all of these. What did she not have? What was one of the things she said? Now it got really hot here. What was one of the things she told Arul the night before? That she would not have to confront if she did go off to marry the god of the Gray Mountain. She doesn't have to put up with her father beating her anymore, right? What else would be a possibility for a princess of a king?
To be married off.
And I like the last word, to be married off. Not to just be married, but to have somebody chosen for you. Okay? That she might not have any interest at all in. In fact, we saw one of the suitors, big old fat guy. So he says, she kind of made out well in this option. So, notice what the fox emphasizes here, more than anything else, as he's done again and again and again. Reason. Let me give you another part of my reading. The fox represents what I would call early C.S. Lewis, the author of the story. What do I mean by early? Let's say 1950. The C.S. Lewis who throughout the very late 30s, 38, 39, and then throughout the 40s, was writing primarily, not entirely, but primarily Christian apologetics. Logical reasons for why Christianity is true and everybody ought to accept it. Logical reasons. Okay? Well, after 1950, beginning around 1954, he writes these fairy tales, collectively known as Chronicles of Narnia. Okay? How full of reason or didacticism, teaching, are the Chronicles of Narnia? They're not really. How do they get their quote-unquote message across? Through story. Okay? Problem of Pain, Mere Christianity, Letters to Malcolm, chiefly on prayer. All these other things are just straight argument. Okay? Chronicles of Narnia is not argument. He doesn't turn around to start writing this until about 1954 or 55. But he tried to write this, meaning a retelling of Cupid and Psyche, from the early 30s. He just couldn't get it right. It took meeting the woman who became his wife for the mental block to somehow get opened up. And here's what I think why. She opened up this. She opened up his heart. She made him feel opposite of this. Passion. Okay. So, the fox equals this. Somebody else kind of equals this. And then you have I'm going to put her down here. Urul over here. This is Psyche, even though her name means mind. Okay? So what's Urul? Or is it that Urul is passion? And Psyche is the mix of the two. Because how does Urul respond to almost everything? How does the novel open?
With reason.
She's full of what? Anger. Anger is a passion. Just like love is a passion. She responds, she replies out of anger to everything. How does she respond when she and Psyche have that talk in Psyche's room the night before?
Really frustrated.
She's really frustrated. She's full of passion. Why? Because she's calm and clear-headed, and she's talking about it from a reasonable perspective, and she's talking about it from what kind of perspective? Passionate. She wants Psyche to do what? Run to her and need to be comforted. She's all about passion. Okay? So what does Urul need to learn? That the fox right here is telling her, you need to learn some of this. Okay? So, let's skip some. What does she take up after Psyche's death? What does Urul take up after Psyche's death to help her deal with her loss? Sword fighting. Why?
You can only think about sword fighting when you're sword fighting.
Because Bardia tells her that essentially, bottom of 91, she puts this in her own words, but essentially teaches her, sweat is the kindest creature of the three, far better than philosophy as a cure for ill thoughts. If your mind is preoccupied with something, you know a great way to deal with it? Go out and do something physical. Go for a long walk, go for a long run. When our kids would get really just spitting angry and mad at something, my wife would make them get a hammer, go outside with a board, and just bang. Just beat on that board until it's toothpicks. And if you need to find another board, go hit a tree. Just, stay away from the animals. But what do you do then? You swing, man. You swing. You get that frustration out. And you do it till you can no longer lift a hammer. When I was back and able to run, if I was, really wound up for something, I'd go for a long run. Long run, this was when I was doing marathons, would be 22 miles. Take about 3 hours. And if I was really pissed at something, it'd take like 2 hours and 45 minutes because I'd be running about a 7.5 minute pace. Just trying to get all that frustration out. So, what do we find out also as a result of her training in sword fighting? She's good at it. Okay? Bardia essentially kind of says, it's too bad you're a woman. You'd have made a good man. She'd have made a good soldier. Okay? So, she and Bardia decides. She makes Bardia accompany her to do what?
Go to the mountain and recover whatever's left of Psyche.
Go to the mountain to get whatever's left. Psyche deserves a proper burial of the bits and pieces that haven't been eaten by the beast. Okay? So, they make their way towards the mountain, page 94, 95, and what happens to her attitude as she leaves the city, goes away from the temple of Ungat? her mind is lifted. Her attitude gets light. And on page 96, we're told, this is the struggle she has. There came as if it were a voice, no words, but if you made it into words, they'd be, why should your heart not dance? Why not rejoice, and be happy? And she kind of tells herself, why not? Because look what I have for a father and king. Look what they did to my sister, etc., etc. So she's got those two competing ideas. And she looks all around her, right in the middle of the page. The freshness and wetness all about me. I had seen nothing but drought and withered things for many months before my sickness. So the freshness and the wet things made me feel that I had misjudged the world. How so? It seemed, there's that verb again, it seemed, which means condition contrary to fact, it seemed kind and laughing, as if its heart also danced. Even my ugliness I could not quite believe in. Who can feel ugly when the heart meets delight? It is as if somewhere inside, within the hideous face and bony limbs, one is soft, fresh, lissome, and desirable. In other words, it's as if Arul is thinking, beneath this, to use the word we used with Lilith, mask, there's what underneath? Woman's perspective. A swimsuit model. A high fashion model. Someone drop dead gorgeous. Right? Was I not right to struggle against this fool happy mood? That is, in here, she feels that way. She feels like inside, what? I am beautiful. Okay? But her mind tells her, look in the mirror, you damn fool. You're not beautiful, you're ugly. I would not go laughing to Psyche's funeral, top of 97, burial. If I did, how should I ever again believe that I had loved her? Reason called for it. Why? Why does reason call for her to be sad? I should be just like such a man if a mere burst of fair weather, fresh grass after a long drought, health after sickness, could make me friends again with this. Notice how she describes the world. God-haunted, plague-breeding, decaying, tyrannous world. What is her problem? She's looking at what aspect of reality and saying, this is everything. Okay. What else? Louder. Okay. What else? She's saying every day is like February 14th in Parkland, Florida. Is it? No. Does our media tell it? Yes. The media is trying to tell us. These kinds of mass shootings at schools happen daily. They don't. Okay? She's taking that and she's making that what? She's making that the lens through which she sees everything. So, even when there is extreme beauty right in front of her face, what does she say? It's a lie. It's a mirage. But she never takes the extreme ugliness right in front of her face and says, it's a lie. It's a mirage. Notice, she's choosing. I was not a fool. In other words, I'm going to see the way the world really is. The gods never send us this invitation to delight so readily or so strongly as when they are preparing some new agony. Notice, they make us feel all wonderful about the world. They make us do what? Fall in love with the world. Why? So they can yank that tablecloth right out from under us and make us topple. Okay? So, They get to the last rise before the real mountain. At our feet, between us and the mountain, lay a cursed black valley. So, they come up a rise, there's a valley, and then there's the mountain on the other side. The mountain on the other side is higher. They can't see over the mountain down here. So, what must they do to get from here to here? Because this is where Psyche has been sacrificed. And how's the valley described? Black valley, dark moss, dark peat bog, shingle, great boulders, blah, 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 blah. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. That's kind of what this is. This is Psalm 23. Because where is she going to meet life? Real life. She's got to go through this and out the other side.
Okay? Pretty hard when you don't think the Lord is your shepherd.
Yeah. If you don't, quote unquote, accept the Lord, or in the terminology in here, the gods, or your shepherd, you think they're just the opposite. They're demons, if anything. Then what does this become? Let's use Trump's term for all those third world nations. A shithole. And what happens? This is where you live. And you never get out of it. Yeah, that can be pretty bleak. That can lead people to do some pretty rotten stuff, like going and shooting up a school. Okay? This is, if you take this out, this is what leads to nihilism. There is no point in existence. Why go on? I mean, if you're, and I'm not advocating anybody commit suicide, okay? So don't get me wrong there. But if you're a nihilist, I mean a real nihilist, and you say there is no point in human existence, there is no point for your being alive, why go on? Why continue the pain or suffering? Because most nihilists say life is pain, period. That there is no real joy. Why keep going? I mean, the founder of the nihilist school of philosophy, you know what ended up happening to him? Friedrich Nietzsche. He went insane. Because that's the logical extension of this. If nothing makes sense, then your mind can't have any sense, and you go insensible, insane. Okay? So, they go on, they make their way up here, and what do they see? There's like a little hollow right at the top, and there is a single, we're told, lifeless tree. Okay? So they go down into the Black Valley, they come back up, and what do? They find footsteps, because, from where the thing went. Page 100. Bardia says, we're very near the bad part of the mountain. I mean the holy part. Beyond the tree, it's all God's country, they say. And then she says, then you must stay behind, Bardia. They can't do worse to me than they've done already. In other words, I don't care about the gods. I'm going to go trespassing. But Bardia he's fearful. Why?
He's got stuff to lose.
Such as? His wife? What else? He believes in the gods. Okay? She doesn't. She's like, gods. They can't hurt me anymore. He says, I'll go where you go. Why? This gets back to what the fox said about how we deal with the loss of those we love. Notice, Bardia is saying what? Yes, I love my wife. Yes, I love my children, etc. But he's there for what purpose? Why did he go along? To protect her. This is his job. Does that mean he doesn't love his wife anymore? Because he's willing for what to happen to him? Possibly. Death. No, he's just willing to put his life on the line. Why? So that the princess will live. He says, but let's not talk about the gods so much. So, they look down into the valley. And they make their way down into the valley. It's not really, that steep. It's kind of more like this. And a river runs through it, and there's the other side, big forest over here. They go down in, page 101. Now we're at the bottom, so warm I had half a mind to dip my hands and face in the swift amber water of the stream, which still divided us. Notice it's amber water. What kind of palace was the god going to build for Psyche? Gold and amber. Okay? And there, she hears two voices cry out, one Bardia's, and there, on the other side of the river, stands Psyche. Okay. So, Psyche says you got to go a little farther up in order to come over. If you've read the Chronicles of Narnia, what phrase do you hear repeated at the end that is in the last battle? Further, higher up, farther in. Or higher in, farther up, one of the two. It's the same thing here. Okay? She says, come on, come across. Notice, Bardia doesn't go across the river or stream. Bardia stands on this side. Why? Because on the other side, he suggests that's the God-haunted side. Okay? So, page 105. They're talking a little bit, and Arul says, bottom of 104, we must be serious, Psyche. Yes, serious and busy too. How have you lived? How did you escape? Come on, tell me. What should we do now? Psyche, top of 105. Do? Why, be merry. What else? Why should our hearts not dance? The very same phrase Arul was thinking as they were making their way. Why should our hearts not dance? Now, according to Arul's site, how is Psyche dressed? In rags. According to Psyche's site, how is she dressed? There's a problem here, right? Can they both be right? So, they talk and talk. And Psyche asks, page 106, or says, she doesn't ask, paragraph that ends kind of in the middle of the page. And you are nearly awake now. Echoes of Lilith. Oh, Psyche is saying, Arul, you've been asleep. Now you're almost awake. Psyche is awake, she says, she believes. So, they keep talking. And page 109, Psyche says, you know what I was thinking all this time? That is, when I was left here and everything, everybody was gone and I'm chained to the tree. What? Well, at first I was trying to cheer myself with all that old dream of my gold and amber palace on the mountain. Notice, at first I was trying to cheer myself. Why? If she's trying to cheer myself, then what is her mental state at that moment? Not very cheery. I mean, she's been chained to a tree, left on a mountain, trying to believe it. What was she trying to believe? Her old dream. What does she mean, her old dream? What was the dream? When she was a much littler girl, they would go off out in the country and she'd look and she would do what? Make up stories. Okay? And she talked in that night before the sacrifice about her desire, her longing. Okay? That's what she's talking about. She tried to really believe that. But I couldn't believe in it at all. Why not? I couldn't understand how I ever had. All my old longings were clean gone. Why? Well, I don't know, maybe confronting death, being tied to a tree, expecting some wild animal to come tear you to pieces, kind of, clears the lenses a little bit, makes you confront reality. And notice, Arul presses her hands, because Arul's thinking what? Finally, she's speaking sense. She's put the fairy tales away. She's going to look at the world as it really is. It's not a fairy tale world. It's Catcher in the Rye. Despicable, vile book that it is. Okay? That is life. And then you die. Okay? Arul thinks Psyche's finally getting a clarity of vision. And she says, only thing that did me good was quite different. It's kind of a thought, hard to put in words. And then the change came. What change? Well, the weather, of course. Okay, so she talks about the wind picking up and saw him. Who? Bottom of 110. Him. The west wind. No, you mean you saw it, right? Because the wind takes what kind of form? None. It's air moving. No, him. So in Arul's mind, Psyche's back where? Back to fairy tale. She's personifying the wind. What do people do when they have an experience they can't make sense of? Either they bury it, or another thing they can do is they come up with images that they're familiar with to try to attach to it to make it make sense. According to one school of thought, that's the foundation of all myth. Thunder must be caused by what? Somebody up there making a big noise. Okay? No, him, the god of the wind. Were you awake? Notice Psyche's like, come on, I'm not that stupid. No, I wasn't dreaming. Besides, you couldn't mistake him. He was in human shape, but he wasn't a man. I mean, you've seen lepers, right? She asks her sister. Well, yeah, of course. Well, how do lepers look compared to us? Pale, skin crumbling off, and maybe missing fingers, nose tips, ears, toes, all bandaged up. In other words, none of you looks like a leper. Okay? So she says, you've seen them, right? Yeah. You know how healthy people look compared to them. Well, yeah, you mean healthier, readier than ever. Yeah. Beside the gods, we're like lepers. Remember the allegory of the cave the other day? The gods are like the sun, and we are like the pale imitation of the sun, the little firelight in the cave. Okay? Oh, okay, so you mean the god was red. Notice, Arul's not getting the point. She goes, no. Psyche, they hadn't stripped you naked or anything? No. I mean, I was ashamed of being mortal. That is, it's kind of like saying, I was ashamed of having this stuff in front of this thing. Well, how could you help that? Don't you think the things people are most ashamed of are the things they can't help? What has Arul been talking off and off an awful lot about? And she does until the end of the novel. Can she help this? This is before Max Factor and Maybelline and, all that other stuff. She can't help how she looks. How does she help how she looks? She puts a veil on. And in the later part of the novel, what's that veil going to do? It creates mystery about her, right? And everybody starts, she must be so beautiful that she wears the veil, because if they saw what she was really like, they would want to fall down and worship her. Okay? Are you sure this happened? Page 112. You must have been dreaming. She goes, no. How do you think I came here? It's more likely everything that happened before in the cave was a dream. All my life before, I was like those chained up in the cave. Okay? So, she says, and he took me to his house. You can see it was a God's house. And he said, enter your house. Yeah, my house, Psyche, the bride of the God. So, yeah, I did marry the God of the gray mountain, etc., etc. Okay? And she talks about the voices of the spirits and such. In bottom of 114, Maya says, or Arul says, oh, you mean she spirits? You're not understanding. Has nothing to do with he or she. It's everything to do with mortal and immortal, etc., etc. Okay? So, 115. Is it true? Show me. Show me your palace. She says, I will. Come on, let's go in. Far? Far to where? To the palace. What do you mean? Where's the palace? She says, you're standing on the stairs. And that's when Psyche realizes she doesn't see it. In 117, Arul says, we must go away at once. This is a terrible place. How does she mean terrible? Does she mean horrible, rotten? Yes. Awesome. Full of awe. Have her eyes been opened? Does she now see it? Nope. She's going to. Okay? So Psyche says, I can't go off. I'm married to the god now. Okay? So, Psyche tells her this is what he meant. He said you wouldn't be able to see it, etc., etc. And we're told, page 120, can a Greek understand the horror of the thought? We'll back up. This valley was indeed a dreadful place, full of the divine, sacred, no place for mortals. What did the priest say about the gods in opposition to the fox? Are they clear, like letters on a page that can be read? No. What does he say about holy places? They're dark places. They're mysterious. Okay? Years after, I dreamed again and again that I was in some well-known place, most often the pillar room, and everything I saw was different from what I touched. Everything I saw, like touching this, was different from what I... How? Because she saw one thing, and when she touched it, rather than my touching a whiteboard, it's like this is the side of an animal. And I could feel the breathing. I could feel the heartbeat. Okay, what would that do to you up here? Okay, that's to put it mildly. It would scare the living daylights out of you, wouldn't it? You go and you get in your car, you pull open the door, and rather than feeling the cold steel or plastic of your door handle, you feel like a paw. And you open and it goes, make some noise, barks or meows or grunts or... What would you do? You'd probably run faster than Usain Bolt away from that car. Okay? So, A rule says she hates this thing, page 124, that comes to Psyche in the darkness. And page 126, we've only got a few minutes left. A rule says, I got to take you home. She says home. Who's to judge between us? Bottom of the page. Who will judge which of us is right? I'll call Bardia. Nope, he can't come. Get up. I'm big sister here. I'm ordering you. You can't order me anymore. I listen to the God. Okay? And we're told, 127, I learned then how one can hate those one loves. Why does she hate Psyche? She won't come back because Psyche no longer needs her. Okay? So, she goes back to Bardia. Next morning, early, Arul gets up and goes down to the stream to get a drink of water. Okay? And we're told, page 132 in the middle, would a river flowing in the God's secret valley do that? That is, would it steady my mind? Or would it do just the opposite? Would it make me go mind-numbingly crazy? So she goes down to get a drink. What must she physically do to get a drink from the stream? She's got to, okay, if any of you have ever been camping or backpacking and you've had to get water from a stream, do you just bend over like this? No. You get down on your knees. What is getting down on your knees symbolic of? Praise. What else?
Worship.
Worship. What else? Prayer. Humility. You're lowering yourself. Okay? She lowers herself. She cups the water. She drinks the water first. For when I lifted my head, that's after she takes the sip of water, she does what? So she does this, and she looks. And what happens? Oh my God. She drinks the water that flows through the God's valley. And then, here it is, man. All laid, like Biltmore Estate, just laid out in front of her. Column upon column, floor upon floor, gallery upon, it's huge. It's massive. There stood the palace, gray as all things were gray in that hour and place, but solid, motionless, wall within wall, etc., etc. And then what happens? She starts to think, is it real? Maybe it's not real. I was in great fear. I looked and looked to see if it would not fade or change. That is, while she's on her knees, she's like, maybe it's not real, but it's not shifting, it's not like fog. When does it disappear? When she stands up. Reasserting what? Her authority. Reasserting her rationality. And it disappears. So now, you who read, you give judgment. She's saying, you, Joseph, you, Andrew, you, Rashid, you give judgment. You tell me. That moment when I either saw or thought I saw the house, does it tell against the gods or against me? Would they, if they answered, make it a part of their defense? Would they say it was a sign, a hint, a beckoning me to answer the riddle one way rather than the other? I'm not going to grant them that. What's the use of a sign which is itself only another riddle? What do all signs do? They point. She's saying, what's the use in a sign if it only does what? Points to another sign. What's the sign? What's it pointing to? It might have been a true seeing. That is, maybe I really did see something that was there. Maybe the cloud over my mortal eyes may have been lifted for a moment. Either way, 134, there's divine mockery in it. They, the gods, set the riddle and then allow a seeming, an appearance that can't be tested and can only quicken and thicken the tormenting whirlpool of your guesswork. In other words, they do what? They drop you a little tidbit and then say, go figure it out. Go figure it out. With what? With the little tidbit. But she said, do they drop just the one little tidbit? No. You get the one little tidbit, and it does what? It points you to another. So now you have two. But then this one points you to this one, so now you have three. Okay? Kind of like, well, let's go all fairy tale. Hansel and Gretel. Because how do they get back home? They follow the breadcrumbs. But are the breadcrumbs an actual map? No. No. It's not like, what's his name in the labyrinth against the Minotaur? Jason? Achilles?
It's Jason.
Yeah, it's Jason. Who goes in with the string. Because all you have to Theseus. Yeah. All you have to do is follow the string. That's a roadmap. Because what can happen with breadcrumbs?
They can get spread out.
Get spread out.
Birds.
Squirrels, birds eat them.
Wind.
Okay. Wind. Okay. So she kind of asked Barty. He goes, over my pay grade. I'm not getting in this one. I believe that's good enough for me. Okay. So, what does, I want to just get us up to about 150 or so. So what does the rule come up with? How's she going to test this? She going to, rig one of those cameras that goes off in the wildlife when some, in the wilds when some wildlife goes by so that if the guy, trips the camera, they get a picture. What does she do?
Psychic put a lamp in, or has oil and lamp and wants to show his face.
How does she get her to do it? She says, if you don't do this, here's how far I'm willing to go. And she stabs herself. Could Psyche go, okay, so you're not going to die? Because what would a rule do? So Psyche has to make the decision. Do I trust my husband or do I save my damn sister's life? Okay? And she saves her sister's life. But she does it thinking what about the God of the Gray Mountain? He will forgive me. Even though she's going against his orders, she's going against his commands, she thinks he will understand. Okay? So we're going to pick up around 155 on Wednesday. We will finish this definitely on Friday, and I will give a take-home exam to do